Welcome to my review for Child's Play 2, and I was really curious as to how they were going to bring Chucky back for this film, because at the end of the first one he's blackened to a crisp, all of his limbs are mostly missing, his skull's all been peeled away, he's a complete mess. I predicted actually that some old buddy of his would come back and do some voodoo on him to get him into a new doll that looks exactly like the first doll. But this is why I'm not a screenwriter, because actually how he comes back is much cleverer. So obviously the police don't believe that Chucky in the first film was doing all the murders and bad stuff, but they do sort of accept that maybe his voice was playing up and saying some crazy things. So they send his doll to the toy factory where he was originally made for a kind of toy autopsy. And so, but the only way they can do this is by putting him back together and sort of giving him fresh limbs, cleaning him up, rebuilding the skull. So that's how they bring him back, and he's off again to go and chase Andy to try and get back into human form. So that takes me nicely onto my first criticism of this film. There won't be many because it is a good film, but as much as I wanted to watch another Child's Play film after really enjoying the first one, I didn't really want to see another Chucky versus Andy type situation. I'd sort of had enough of that the first time around. I'm not big on these horror villains going after kids, but at least in Andy's defence, he's not the really annoying type of kid. You know, I don't know if it's the actor's limitations, but he doesn't react too much to whenever he gets close to getting killed by Chucky, which at least was a welcome thing. One actress, I should say, who doesn't come back for this film is Catherine Hicks as his mother. Her character's been institutionalised after the first movie because of stress. This isn't entirely believable. She's the sort of woman who would never abandon her kid, no matter what happens, but I don't know if the actress didn't want to come back or whether they just wanted to, take things in a different direction, because what this does is taking Andy away from his mother. It means he has to go into a foster home, which means the location can be changed from a downtown Chicago apartment to more of a white picket fence neighborhood type area with this kind of halfway house type thing. So that's a nice change of pace. I didn't mind this character not coming back though. I can't even remember the name of Catherine Hicks' character, but I think once was enough for her too, to be honest. One character I did miss, and he's not coming back either for this, was Chris Sarandon, who was really good as the cop in the first movie. Again, I don't know why he wasn't brought back, but he was certainly missed, I think. But we do get some new characters to replace these departing ones. Kyle, played by Christine Elise, and when she first comes on screen in this film, I immediately thought, here's some cannon fodder to die a couple of scenes from now. She didn't look much, but I'll tell you what, the more the film went on, the more this girl impressed me. She was terrific. I really enjoyed her character. And her and Andy make a really good team, much more so than Andy and his mother from the first film, I thought. And I really hope, actually, that they bring Kyle back for the third movie. I've not spoiled it for myself by checking what happens in future movies and who's in it and who's not. So, I mean, if you've seen Child's Play 3, maybe you already know, but I certainly don't. But I'm hoping she comes back. She was really, really good. Jenny Agutter plays Joanne, Andy's new stepmom. She was very good. And there's a very early role in this for Greg German, who plays a character called Matson, a kind of young employee at the toy factory. I've seen this actor in so many things, and I've just never really learned his name or anything about him. But this is the youngest I've ever seen him, so it must have been one of his earlier roles. His boss in the film is in quite a lot of the early scenes in this film, and he plays a character very similar to the old man director from RoboCop, who's sort of in charge of OCP. And I thought they were going to have a sort of subplot in this movie where he's constantly trying to, keep the bad press away because of everything the Chucky doll's doing, but they completely abandoned that after about 15 minutes, which is sort of a shame, but I guess they wanted to keep the focus on Andy and Chucky, which is fair enough. Chucky himself is just as entertaining in this film as he was in the first one. He starts speaking a lot earlier in this one, so we get more of him, more of his funny lines. On the flip side, we don't get that gradual build-up of tension that we did in the first movie, where we're wondering if he's going to speak, what will it be like when he does. So it's kind of a trade-off, but he's still very, very good. He doesn't really get much in the way of character development, but we wouldn't really want that. When we get a really good recurring serial killer character, it's usually best to try and keep them as similar as possible. Although there is an interesting little twist near the end of the film which I think may take the series in a different direction, but if you've not seen the film, I'll let you discover it for yourself. kills in this film are kind of, I didn't think they were quite as good as the first movie. And strangely, for a sequel like this, they didn't really up the body count or up the gratuitousness, or so they kind of went the same way as the first one in terms of how many kills and how spaced out they were, kind of thing, which is fine. This is more of an observation than a criticism, but unusual for a sequel. Probably the best thing about this film, though, are the locations. I've already touched upon the fact that Andy gets a new home in a completely different type of place, you know, the kind of suburbia setting. But there's also this brilliant ending in a toy factory, and this is just the perfect place to have a showdown between Chucky and whoever he's going after in any particular movie. It's a brilliant place. It's full of conveyor belts and machinery and toys all over the place and big piles, and there's just so much potential for a good battle with a killer puppet, and that's exactly what we get. And Chucky takes just as big a battering at the end of this film as he does in the first one. You know, the writers seem to love finding new ways to completely get on Chucky when it gets towards the end of the film, and you know, they have to have the main character strike back. It's just really, really good. So on the whole, it is an impressive sequel. I'd heard that this was the best Child's Play movie, although I didn't think it was much better than the first one. They're very, very similar. In fact, this is probably a good time for me to swing my review axe, and I'm going to do this in a slightly different way today. I'm not just going to say it. I've actually got some axes, so let's see what I've got in my bag of terror. And what have we got? We've got, I believe, we've got 4 bloody axes. So that is the score for Child's Play 2. Nice visual prop today, yeah. I did hunt quite hard for a bag of terror that actually has a picture of a serial killer on the front, but all I could find were these lousy cucumbers. But I guess the Midnight Woodsman's food of choice could be cucumbers, maybe. So yeah, we've got the same score then as the original Child's Play, which is about right. I think if I had to pick one of the 2 films to watch again, I probably would just go for the second one. I think it's got the better locations, and I like the team dynamic between Kyle and Andy. They really make a good duo. But the first one's got more originality. It's got Chris Sarandon. It's got a bit of Brad Dourif at the beginning of the movie. Better kills, I think. So, I don't know, on the whole, very, very similar. So I'm quite happy that I've given both films the same score. Sadly, there's no pin for our horror locations board today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my video where I talk about my horror locations map. But we already put a pin in Chicago for Child's Play 1, and this film also takes place in Chicago, obviously, so I'm not going to put 2 pins in the same city, so there's nothing doing there. Hopefully I'm going to get to see Child's Play 3 very soon. I'm really enjoying getting into this series. Before I started doing this a few weeks ago, I'd only ever seen the first one years ago, and now I really think I'm going to go all the way through this time, so it's good, it's all good. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Check out my other reviews in my playlist, and I will see you again next time. Cheerio, bye-bye.